Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition. Battle tested, expert formulated. Use discount code AB10 at checkout for 10% off. Hey guys, this is Big Paul here with Kolton Lucas. We're back again with another breakdown of whatever we get into tonight. We're just gonna wing it, go at it. I dropped the F-bomb already. YouTube hates it when you drop F-bombs these days.
That's like in the first 10 seconds too.
I think if you do it in the first, the rules are if you do it, I think it's for 17 seconds or something weird like that, they don't count it.
It's so weird. It's like a Nazi space now. We just have like, you don't know what's right or wrong, and everyone's trying to figure it out at the same time. It's like, oh, what's going on?
It's really weird. They rolled out all these new rules for monetization after the first year, and like they kind of like silently did it and didn't really tell anybody about it. But when you go in and agree to the terms, it's all in there. You know how many F-bombs you can drop and still monetize your ads. It's not like you make a crap ton off the monetization anyway. So
right.
People think I'm over here. It's like launch money, to be honest with you. I think I spend more on video equipment and just bought this new streaming software today that I actually make off of YouTube. It's not really a profit center. It's good for marketing, but it's not a profit center. That is for sure, unless you're like one of the top guys like PewDiePie or something.
Yeah, those guys are raking it in. It's interesting to me because I thought there was like a kids YouTube channel, like, or a kids whole an entire platform for kids. So it's like, why do we have to censor all of what we say? Essentially, it's really strange.
Well, when you're monetized, they actually ask you in the when you put a video up, it'll ask you if this is fit for children or not.
Yeah, I got those. Yeah, I started getting those. You have to say no every time.
Yeah, me too. I just have a default set for no. And then the I don't know. It's weird. I try to be a good citizen and play along because I like being on here, but some of it's a little ridiculous.
I'm curious to like. I know there's obviously it states like if it's for educational purposes and entertainment purposes only, it doesn't necessarily matter. But with like explaining gear and in general, like especially in the United States, like illegal compounds, like. It seems that they don't really care. There's people who have YouTube channels about psychotic drugs or like recreational drugs, and it's like there's steroid channels, and it's like there's not really any demonetization happening on those channels. It's kind of weird.
Well, they have banned channels before, man. They went through and wiped out a bunch of people.
I know Tony Huge got banned at one point, right?
My friend Dr. Todd too. He had a pretty big channel there for a while.
Yeah.
And his got wiped out too. So. I don't know. I try to play it safe and keep it entertaining, and I don't know. I just don't want to be a jerk to anybody. I think that's the big thing, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyways, you're on cruise still, right?
Yeah, I'm still doing 125 milligrams of tests cruising. We were talking about before the thing, like I was like a little panicked, worried about my kidneys, but I think I just got a urinary tract infection or something going on, but. My creatinine was a little high the last time. That's the first time it's ever been high on blood work. So I'm going in for more blood work next week. I was going to do it this week, but I got a cold. So probably not the good time to get blood panels done when I'm taking antibiotics.
No, definitely not. Do you typically, I know we talked off air, but you talked about your urine being a little bit bubbly. Is that typically for your clients? Do you consider that like a red flag for them? Is it if they like
happen? I mean, it would be a time to get a urinalysis done and get get a cystatin C test done, and you can have a good EGFR reading and still have protein in your urine. Yeah. So I've seen that before.
Blood, even I've seen that too.
I've always had a little bit of blood in my urine. I've had it checked out multiple times, and the doctor didn't seem to be concerned about it. He's like, that just happens.
Interesting.
It's been like that for 20 years.
There you go.
Maybe I'm headed for kidney failure. I don't know, but
we got stem cell therapies now. We're good. We'll just go shoot our kidneys up with stem cells and then keep going.
Yeah, we'll see if that actually works. It doesn't sound like a good science to me.
I know. I'm a little skeptical. He's been there the whole week, and I'm seeing on his Instagram he's injecting his face, his hair, his kidneys, like all this shit. And I'm like, I don't know, man. It's kind of
I don't see
It
how the
seems like,
nephron would regenerate from that.
yeah, I mean, on paper, like when you say it, it sounds good, of course, but I think that table talk is where you sell a lot of people on shit that doesn't actually, like, it's like PRP hypothetically would work, but in practice, you see that like people make it temporary relief. It's not long term,
I'm just
right?
thinking if they inject in the kidneys, aren't the kidneys constantly flushed with water?
Right. That's the thing. Like they wouldn't have time to regenerate because they're always in use. You know,
Yeah.
it'd be weird to, I mean, imagine there's maybe something there. I know like when your kidneys are unhealthy, you can even go through uh the what the hell is the therapy called? I'm spacing on it. Dialysis, and it will relieve
Dialysis.
some taxation from the kidneys, and they can have an effect of rebounding a little bit. I know that's even a real thing that's been shown in research where, you know, someone has potential kidney damage or their kidneys seem to be going in the wrong direction. They'll put them on like one cycle of dialysis and then they rebound permanently from that point. So maybe it would be like injecting the stem cells, going on dialysis for a couple weeks and then coming off and seeing what happens. But even then it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I've heard once you go on dialysis, you're done. That's
Yeah.
always what.
I've seen that too. It's hard, man. It's like, I mean, some night. I get nightmares about thinking about that, man. It's just like that is the one thing, and it is truly like the easiest thing to fuck up on in bodybuilding is your kidneys. I think it's just like it is so easy if you're not paying attention to your blood pressure. Which, thank God, you post your blood pressure like every single week on Instagram, and you support the movement of just checking. But it's like it's so easy to let that go by for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then you start to immediately see repercussions.
I mean, it's not just blood pressure too; it's uncontrolled blood sugar too. I mean, that's another.
Yep.
That's that you blow out your kidneys if your glucose levels are running too high for too long. I mean, there's some compounds are kidney toxic by themselves.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's I make all of my clients with their check-ins check their glucose levels, their fasted glucose levels, and their blood pressure.
Yeah.
And send it to me. Now, whether or not they're telling the truth, I don't know, but at least I'm going through the process of making them aware of it.
Right.
I figure that exercise alone should be worth something.
Yeah.
I hope.
Absolutely. I mean, it's crazy. Even with having high blood glucose levels, I think it's like 125 milligrams per deciliter can within a day start causing like retinal damage to the eye. Like you actually get like ocular shifts and changes in damage to the vasculature within the eye, which is just a day of like having 120 nanograms per or milligrams per deciliter in your system. There's evidence that it immediately can cause like clotting factors to increase. I mean, it's like scary stuff. And if you're riding at like 125, 130 all day long, like that's a big issue, you know. And if you're waking up at like 95, 100, you're definitely sitting over that most of the day.
After a contest one time, I was hyponatremic, and your body basically can't uptake blood glucose when that happens, and because of the electrolyte imbalance, and my glucose levels got up in the 500s, man.
Holy shit!
I couldn't see.
Wow, dude.
My vision got completely blurry.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, man. That's scary.
I mean, this is the crazy shit that happens after contests sometimes. I mean, it's why people die on contest prep, man.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the dangers in bodybuilding lie within that 2-3 week window before a show and on that show day is like the protocols put in place and the shifting of those essential minerals. It's tricky work, and it's like extremely dangerous, you know.
Well, mine was post show, and Justin warned me. He's like, dude, he said, you're going to be thirsty. Don't go drink a ton of water right away. Be careful, just, slowly make sure he was telling me like to sip on Pedialyte and or use sugar-free Gatorades to kind of get things back in balance. And I think I drank a whole gallon of water right after my show. and then shit just went downhill from there. You hear about marathon runners going hyponatremic and dying.
Yeah. David Goggins just wrote a book. I just read it. What is it called? Never Finished. And he talks about that in one of his races he was doing, that he started to go hypernatremic and he was like experiencing heart palpitation. I mean, he's had his heart fuck up on him many times. He had to get surgery and stuff. It's like, That's scary, man. It gets
I
really
don't know if you
scary.
saw Mark Bell posted something the other day. He was in the hospital from he was running and said he started feeling wacky and then stopped to get some sugar because he he does that crazy
Yeah.
carnivore diet where he doesn't eat any carbs. He thought he was going
Yeah.
his blood sugar was getting low and he got to the hospital and his blood sugar was like in the 400s. It sounded exactly like the same situation that I had. Exactly.
Yeah. That's some scary stuff. It's funny because people, I don't know, it's kind of like, I think maybe earlier on in our generations, like people thought bodybuilding was healthy. You see like a really shredded body, a guy in shape, you usually correlate that to like, hey, this dude's, eating healthy, he's in good shape. Probably fucking not. Let's be real. It's the same thing with running. Like people think runners are healthy. Like those guys don't have great mortality rates, and the damage to their cardiac tissue they cause from running and keeping their heart elevated like 24/7, their heart rate elevated, man, it's not good. Those guys live a very poor, like they're not healthy. Like it's scary.
What was the guy, the runner? You're too young to remember this. The guy that wrote the book about running that died when he was like 48. Was it Prefontaine? No, I don't remember the guy's name. I don't know, but it's somebody in the comments can talk about it. But yeah, I remember that the dude died super young he was a distance runner. It was basically wrote a book about the runner's high and how running's great for you and all. I mean, really, any extreme activity, you're taking years off your life. I mean, you climb.
Being a CEO, you're gonna damage your health just from working so much.
That's what my day job is. I'm a CEO.
Really?
Yeah, I run a company. I don't talk about it a lot.
Okay, all right, we won't go there.
I can't say a whole lot, but I run an IT company. That's what I do.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm in that space. So I do. This is just for fun. Part-time gig for me.
I dig it. It's relaxing, man. It's for me too. Like I have the coaching business, and I got on here last time, and people heard me like say we cleared 50K one month, which was like a huge accomplishment. That's true, but people need to understand. Like I have like a bunch of coaches who work under me, and I have like a whole staff who manages their media and my social media, and it's like a whole functional business. So it's not like we clear 50K, I'm making 50K. It's like I'm paying people salaries and stuff, but it's this is for fun, and it's like the one thing that calms me down and like cools me. Like I get to just content creation in general, like taking pictures. I think a lot of bodybuilders in general need more creative outlets. We're just like, I think a lot of us are very like mute to our emotions by nature of maybe our come up and the stuff that happens in the background that causes us to be bodybuilders in the first place. But like being creative can be extremely helpful in progressing, even just because it clears the mind and it allows you to like kind of go into that deep work mode and something else.
It's a bit cathartic. I'm a workaholic. I always have been.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something we could talk about too, is just work ethic with things. And I think bodybuilders, people that are serious about bodybuilders, that skill set translates into other things in life, business, whatnot. I see a guy like Jay Cutler, who's transitioned from bodybuilding into business. It's the same thing with bodybuilding. It's a grind. It's a slow grind, and you have to do the little things day in and day out to make progress. And it's the same way in business.
Yeah,
it's just hard work. I literally work 7 days a week, man. I never take a day off. Even if I take a day off, for me, it's just checking my email twice a day instead of looking at it all day long, or checking my DMs from my clients once a day or whatnot. So it's not like I ever take a full day off of work ever.
Yeah,
even when I'm sick.
It's the same for me too, and I think it's. Bodybuilding definitely, like, so I was in the military for 8 years and I did a lot of other shit before that, but it was like bodybuilding specifically, like very, like I take the military out of it, taught me so much about those little things, like the minutia, the small details every single day, adding up to the overall picture. And like this kind of clusterfuck of things you do in a day that can actually accumulate into like this amazing thing at the end of 16 weeks or whatever. And so like every day I eat my meal and I'm like, this is going to get me a little bit better. And I train and it's going to get me a little bit better. It's the same with business or relationships. It's like every day I put a little bit towards it and maybe do so unwillingly in a sort of sense, but I know that I'm going to get the repercussions that are going to be positive from that. And it's kind of taught me that in everything. It's like, just go like, what's next? And never just like, all right, we're good. It's like, what's next? You got to always keep improving. It's like it's kind of like a game. It's like a little bit addicting in a weird way.
It is. That's what I tell people. I like I don't have a lot of guilty pleasures outside of work, but I do play video games every once in a while, and I like role-playing games.
Yeah.
I'm grinding a character in role-playing games versus grinding my real-life character, and leveling up my YouTube game. One subscriber at a time. It's the same thing, really. It is.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding's the same way too. You know, I remember, I think it was Dorian Yates that said every day in the gym is another brick in the house. You know, building the house. I mean, it's the same mentality.
Yeah, that's so damn true, man. It's cool though. I tell everyone, you know, whether they're my clients and they're not into competing or they are just getting into competing, I'm like, even if you just do one show, it'll teach you a whole hell of a lot about yourself, about truly how comfortable you let yourself be on most days. And it's to put yourself out of that, because my big premise, and I talk about this a lot, but people are way too comfortable, man. Like people live in such comfort zones and they don't even realize it. Like they're just floating along, living in lives that they're not providing anything to the world outside of just like consuming, and they don't realize it. And then once you can push them outside of that comfort zone, it kind of like opens their damn eyes and they're like, holy shit, like I was really lazy, like, or I was, you know, drastically unproductive, and now I see what production can do. And then they start to change and shift their mindset like forevermore. I've seen it so many times where a guy will go through a prep and it's like at the back end of the prep, he's like a completely different dude. He starts, you know, doing the chores in the house. He starts cooking for his wife instead of the other way around. He starts going out and actually like performing in different areas in life outside of just bodybuilding. It's like, it's a big eye opener for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's 100% true, man. A lot of people have never had the struggle or had to really face adversity. I mean, I grew up dirt ass poor, man. I had nothing growing up. My parents were super poor. We were below the poverty line. I grew up in the cusp of Appalachia, and I mean, we literally had nothing growing up, and I've had to grind my way up from nothing to have some success in life. And I've been lucky. I've had a couple of successful businesses, and the bodybuilding thing is just, you know, another thing that I do. It's just a hobby, to be honest with you, but everything I do has a grind in it, really.
Yeah. What got you into business? Like, did you just happen to fall upon an opportunity, or was it like an intentional thing? Like, I want to start my own shit.
I realized very early on that I don't like taking orders from other people.
Yeah.
There's one boss that I like the best, man, and that is me.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Same way.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm like, why am I working for somebody else? You know, right now the primary company I run is run by you know, a couple other people, but I've owned several businesses, and I've run a bunch of businesses. I've sold some businesses, but I mean, it's, you know, it's the only pathway that I saw where I could create the opportunity that I wanted, and I liked the idea of having control over my own destiny. Really, for me more so, and then the independence and freedom that comes along with it.
Yeah. It's interesting because like when you work a normal job, it's like you have your hour in and your hour out, and then you just kind of shut off. And that's nice because you get more free time where your brain's not occupied. But in the same breath, it's not nice because you do have an outside system controlling you essentially. Whereas when you're on your own accord, you're your own CEO, right? You have the ability to move left or right. You can say, I want to do more and thus make more money, or you can say, I'm going to do less and not make more money. And it's your own choice. Obviously, that kind of leads to like, I always want to make more, but it's nice to not like, even going from being able to turn off outside of work to now kind of like working 24/7. I would still prefer this because I have the say in like, okay, well, if I have a hard day at work, I know it's going to equal more, and it's always going to make more for me in the end of the day, versus some days are hard, some days are easy, but I always get the same, you know. And it's like, I might get a promotion, I might not get a promotion, I might get a day off, I might not get, it's like, I can control the whole system, you know?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, 95% of it is under my control. I mean, there is a small percentage that you can't control. You know, I used to own a mortgage and real estate business, and like when the market crashed, that was out of my control.
Yeah.
But the how hard I work and what I do with my time, how I use my time, that is all under my control. It's the same thing with the bodybuilding stuff. I think it's what people don't realize. But I don't know. I like knowing if I put in X amount of work, I'm going to get Y results.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I have control over that. Whereas with working for somebody else, I'm just trading my time for a fixed dollar.
Right.
Really, it to me, like, everybody feels like that's the safer way to go. For me, that I don't know. You only get one shot at life.
Yeah.
I'm trying to squeeze the most out of it as I can, and sometimes it involves risk in business, risk with your health, with bodybuilding. I mean, any endeavor like this requires some risk.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole thing with working a job too is it's like if you're not making like 6 to 8% of a raise every year, you're losing money with inflation. Like, and that's a scary thought. And I know that I can control that by changing prices or hiring, firing different people, all sorts of different things. But man, it's like that's what I started to look at really when I was getting into starting my own, because I own a real estate business and I own this one, the coaching one. And when I started doing that, I was like, I just changed my perspective. I was like, I'm actually losing money. Like I'm like year to year, I am genuinely losing thousands of dollars, no matter how I splice it. Like I make good money, but I'm still going to lose money unless I get a significant raise. But if I, let's say, take 3 years to get a raise and it's like 10K a year, I've really just broke even with inflation rates. Like that's all that happened. It's a hard life to live unless you're like at the C-level positions in corporations and stuff. It's like it's tough, dude.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I do what I do. I mean,
Yeah.
I am at the C-level at a corporation right now,
Right.
a small corporation, but I mean, I also do stuff like this, and it's been pretty successful for me. But I think the lesson here for really anybody, I know this is a bodybuilding podcast, but I know, I mean, I think these lessons are important. It's the grind, the ability that you have a lot more control over things than you think.
Yeah.
And it's true with bodybuilding and taking control of the situation, understanding the work that goes into it, and that if you just stick to the plan and keep grinding away, that you will see improvement. And the incremental improvement from day to day is hard to see, but it adds up over time. Yeah. It's the same thing with a business. When you're building a business, and anybody who's run a business before, the first year or two, most of the time you don't make shit. A lot of times you're upside down. But if you keep grinding, you keep doing the work, eventually it comes around. It's the same thing with bodybuilding. Like I get dudes all the time that I'll coach them for 3-4 weeks, and they're like, I'm not seeing any results. So I'm like, well, no shit, you're not seeing any results. It's only been 3 weeks, dude.
Right. It's like it takes you years to get to a point. Like maybe you think you can get results in 4 weeks, but it's going to take you 8 months to start seeing, for those results to be very apparent. So like it takes so much time. And I love what you said about it, the day after day, like that stuff matters. And it's like, you have to, just like bodybuilding, I know everything how to prep myself, but I'm still going to hire a coach because I know at the last like 6 weeks, I'm going crazy. Like I got to do more cardio. I got to eat less, or I got to eat more. I don't, like, you just don't think about it. It doesn't work like you would telling another person. And it's the same damn thing, man. It's like you go crazy in business. You got to find the right people you have to associate with. I'm a huge proponent, and you're some of the 5 people you hang around with most. So if you find
that's
really good
huge.
people, it's like it carries you so far.
I mean, that's a huge thing. I have had to prune people from my life at many points. I feel terrible saying about it, but a lot of the people I grew up with were shitheads.
Yeah, no, me too.
Some people I would call friends, and I had to come to a point in my life where I had to say, these guys have got to go.
Yeah.
It's not that I completely cut them out of my life, but I can't have day-to-day interaction with them and achieve the things that I need to achieve.
Right.
I know it sounds cold, but it's true. And then I decided that I was going to focus on people that are on the rise, or people that think like me.
Yeah.
I think I saw, I don't, you and I have only talked a few times, but you seem like a guy that's got his head screwed on straight. And I've gotten pretty good at identifying people like that over the years. So, I think that's one of my gifts. That's why I've been successful, is I've
Oh yeah.
I've surrounded myself with good people. So that's a really good point.
Yeah.
You are the sum of the people that you surround yourself with. That is 100% true. If you surround yourself with shitheads and assholes, you're not going to have good results.
You're going to be a shithead and asshole.
You're going to be a shithead and an asshole.
Weird question. Do you think that steroids helped you with business?
Yes.
Yeah. I like hands down, like Tren has like changed my life in business when I was on prep. It was crazy.
The most productive I ever am is on prep. I mean,
Yeah.
I get so much. I think we talked about it a little bit the last time, but I get so much shit done when I'm on prep, man.
Mm-hmm.
And Tren, it's a weird thing. Like people always assume Tren is going to make you rage out, which is not the case with me. No. But what it does is it sort of removes emotion from decision making for me. Like things just become very black and white.
Yes.
Like very black and white. Like I can see things clearly.
Mm-hmm. It's super weird. You're more quick to make a decision, but it's also much more laid out in front of you, so to speak. Like you don't have to put as much for like you're not contemplating like how it makes someone feel or what this might do down the line. It's just like, all right, this looks like the best option based on the information I have, and it's like that's what we're going with.
You know what's hilarious, man? I was struggling in my marriage for many years, and I just kept hanging on to the marriage. And I remember I ran Tren, and I was just like, I need to punch out. This ain't working.
That's awesome.
I was Dr. Todd was coaching me at that time, and I laughed my ass off because he called it the anabolic ayahuasca.
Yeah. Dude, that's fucking accurate, man.
I like the anabolic ayahuasca. He's like, I was like, man, I think Tren made me get a divorce. He's like, no, the Tren didn't make you get a divorce. It made you see things clearly, man. But it does. I mean, all jokes aside, it does seem to help you pull back and remove emotion from decision making. And I found this is another thing in life. I found that when you make decisions based on emotion, most of the time they suck.
Oh yeah, every time. It's like the girls you decide to date. You know, it's like you're really emotionally attached to one because of the way she looks, but you start hanging out with her and you find she's just a dud. And it's like,
yeah,
it's like that initial emotion. Like if you take that emotional route every time, you're always going to fail. But sometimes if you take the 8 who isn't necessarily the 10, the 8 might have some more properties that are well sufficient compared to the 10, but your emotions tell you go for the 10. So you have to like slow down and look at the whole picture essentially.
Well, the 20-year-old Paul just went for the crazy stripper. The one that was going to have great sex with and then stab me with an ice pick in my eye when I'm sleeping and tell me that she's pregnant with my kid.
Oh, Jesus. We deal with it later.
Yeah. I like to live dangerously when I was in my 20s, man. I don't do that anymore.
Man.
Oh, God, I loved crazy women when I was younger.
Were you on gear back then, too?
I piddled around in my early 20s. Yeah, it was just like a D-ball here and there. It wasn't anything serious. I didn't do a real cycle until I was almost 30.
Okay. Wow, dude, that's so abnormal. That's like so strange.
Well, the problem was I'm old, man. Stuff is so readily available now. You couldn't find it anywhere. I mean, you had to know somebody who knew somebody who, right. And it wasn't like there was, wherever you could go to online and get whatever the fuck you want, like ordering from Amazon. Back then, it was just like you had to work your way into the in crowd at the gym and get somebody to trust you. And then once you got in, it was whatever he had left over.
Yeah,
it was a different world. But I will say this: back in the 90s, I'm dating myself when I was in my 20s. The gear was real pharmaceutical grade shit back then.
Every time.
Yeah, I mean, it was none of this UGL bathtub stuff. That didn't come around until the early 2000s. It was all like, I mean, we would get real bare testoviron, and it was all sharing. It was all real pharmaceuticals.
Do you think that was a better time because it was maybe more people were that you thinned out the herd, so to speak, because you couldn't just get online and Google fucking anabolicforum.com and find whoever you need?
No, I think it's better now because there's better information. I mean, there was no really, there were a couple books. I remember buying Dan Duchesne's book on steroids, and I thought Yeah, I don't even think Bill Llewellyn stuff was out then. Maybe
Really?
it was, but even Bill Llewellyn stuff isn't always 100% correct. I mean, there's
No,
some
it's
incorrect information in
no.
there. But as people like to point out on my steroid profile videos that were taken from his book, but no, I mean the information was just so sparse and so bad that we didn't know anything about anything. And like I look back at Dan Duchesne's book, he was considered the god back then, and it was just awful.
Yeah.
The
No,
advice was terrible. Yeah,
I'm
yeah, you got onto a few things that were correct, but it for the most part it was really bad. And then you would just hear what some bro at the gym would tell you, you know, hey man, take some D-ball. It's going to make you huge.
yeah.
We didn't even know what any of it did. I just knew the only thing I knew was steroids.
So there was no information on like, oh, this is going to shut me down, or this is going to like I have to.
Oh hell no! And I never heard
Really?
anybody talk about fertility. There, I mean, think about it. In the '90s, there were no AIs.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, we didn't know there was no estrogen management back then, man. Nobody knew anything about estrogen management.
That's crazy. So
I mean,
guys would just run stuff, and then whenever it ran out, they would just shut themselves down and face.
Yeah, I mean, it was the whole ideology back then. I did a video about 90 steroid cycles, but back then it was time on equals time off. So you would, you know, you'd do 8 weeks on, 8 weeks off. That was the dogma back then, and it was, you know, you would test Deca D-ball was the old school, you know, cycle for getting big, and then they would call it wet compounds and dry compounds. That's all people knew. And then you would run your Winstrol and Equipoise for contest prep or whatever.
That's crazy.
A lot of people didn't even run tests. I mean, people started running tests in the 90s, but like the old guys, like the 80s and 70s and 80s, nobody ran tests back then.
Yeah, I've heard a couple people mention like old dudes that they just did primo only for a lot of the shit.
Well, I think it's because there was no AIs.
Right.
I mean, what do you do about estrogen management?
Yeah, that's crazy. I just think about how many tabs I heard, you know, Arnold popping like they're freaking candies. It's like, holy shit, dude, how are you not getting gyno? Like,
well, only the genetic elite survived. It's the people that didn't have, that weren't pro. I mean, tamoxifen was around, but I don't think anybody knew anything about it. You know, so basically, if you weren't prone to gyno, you got to be a pro bodybuilder. If you were, you were fucked.
Right.
And I don't even think people knew what caused gyno.
No, I think it's super interesting because back then you see these pinnacle physiques, and you don't really see too much of the not aesthetic looking individuals. And maybe there is that like combing effect because it was so genetically decided, you know, essentially like, hey, if you react poorly to this compound, or you aren't putting on muscle with this compound and poorly reacting to this style of training, you're just not going to be a bodybuilder. And now it's just like there's more of a lower barrier to entry, and so many people are getting in, and it's just like creating this sort of watered down competing. I don't know.
Guys used a lot less back then.
Yeah,
that was for sure. I mean, the doses. I think I get people that get angry at me talking about the 90s steroid cycles when people would use less. Like I heard Dorian Yates talk about what he used, and it wasn't much. I mean, it was something like he was running like 750 tests a week, maybe a gram. I don't remember. But what people forget is like the stuff that we got back then. It all came in ampules, and so when we talked about cycles back then, it wasn't like people talk about it now, where they say, you know, I'm taking a gram of this a week and 500 milligrams of that. It was like back then, I'd hear guys say, I took 3 tests and three decas. So that's what I did. You know, I took a test and a deca every day. So it was 1 amp of test and 1 amp of deca. And, you know, the test back, I think the testovirons were dosed at 200.
Interesting.
200 milligrams, if I remember correctly. And the old decas were at 100. So, you know, if you were taking one every other day, it was, you know, I mean, what is, I mean,
600 and 300,
700. It'd be 700 tests a week, and then you know, 350 deca. Yeah. You know, that was a cycle. That was a beefy cycle. And then they would throw, you know, you might take 50 milligrams of D-ball a day. So, you know, you're taking, you know, 1.3 grams. I mean, that was a cycle. That was a hefty cycle. That was like a pro cycle back then.
Yeah, that's a far cry from what's going on now.
But it was real pharmaceutical grade gear. You knew it was dosed properly. I speculate, and this is just me I don't have any evidence of this, but I speculate that a lot of the bathtub gear that people get now is just severely underdosed, and the gram that you're taking is not really a gram.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember what the study was. There's a great review that illustrates that all the gear that has been captured by the border agents who, I can't remember they seize the packages at the border, but all that gear that's been captured, when they test it, 63% of the total anabolics from 2013 to 2018 were counterfeit. They weren't real. And then there was a large proportion, I think 37%, that were underdosed significantly. So there's like obviously a lot. And the thing is too, is I've had experiences where myself and clients where I've done a cycle using the same supplier and it was amazing. Like results were very, very quick, not really any changes outside of that. And other cycles where it was with the same product, same supplier, but a completely different result. And it's like, it's truly batch to batch even. Like you don't, the UGLs who are getting this stuff, they're probably not testing it a whole lot of the time. They're probably just running it, cooking it, and sending it out like that fucking week, you know? So I imagine that it's even outside of the UGL's control. It's just what they're getting. And then they don't necessarily batch test every time. So they might get really good shit one time and then the next time not so good stuff. And it just slowly changes over time.
And it's not like they're running a big fucking pharmaceutical
Yeah,
lab either.
right.
You know, do you really think the dude they got sitting in there making this shit is weighing everything out
Right.
to you know,
that's what kills me.
Picogram.
This way, when you see like underground labs with microgram dosed gear, I'm like, do you really think this homie's like back there measuring out micrograms like as accurately as he can? Or you see like the micrograms in liquid solutions. It's like, I don't know how accurate that's going to be. It's going to be pretty wildly varied between products.
Yeah, there's no way they're weighing it out and testing it, and then it's just that's so I think a lot of I don't know how much weight, like that's why I said I don't know how much weight you can actually put into what doses are now.
Yeah.
So I mean, people get really hung up on doses, and I think it's just relative, and it's a stupid argument, really.
Yeah, I always say it's just like I don't really care how much you're using for how long. It's more just what the blood work says and any organ imaging that we can get in like your biometrics, like your heart rate, blood pressure, heart rate variability. It's like if those things are telling us you're fine and we're not going too overboard with things, we're probably fine. Like if we're not seeing any degradations to organ function and we're not seeing anything wrong every 20 to 30 weeks with organ imaging, like we're good, and there shouldn't be a huge fret about it, you know.
Yeah, you think most bodybuilders are really getting any organ imaging done?
Oh, fuck no. No, this is more my clients who are actually doing the do, but it's very rare. I'm a hypochondriac, so I'm like, you know, the week before my show, I did 3 EKGs, an echocardiogram, and a kidney and liver ultrasound, just because I was like, I wanted to know, you know, and it turned out everything was like better than it was in the off season. But it's like something to me I think is so valuable is just doing that testing, even if it's just once a year, the organ imaging, because you can learn a lot from blood work, but there's certain things you can't learn that an ultrasound will tell you, especially an echocardiogram. That stuff is like, if you can learn your ejection fraction, you can know a whole hell of a lot about what risks you're really worth. Like when you can visually see your heart beating on a screen and you see a fucking terrible ejection fraction and you can see how weak your heart is, it's like, oh man, like this is bad, you know, and then it kind of like shocks you a little bit. But when you just see something on the blood work, like your HDL is up or your HDL is down or whatever, like you don't really think about, you know, process the effects of that.
Yeah, I've had people catch stuff. I've had a guy that kept running high prolactin and had him go ahead and get checked, and he had a pituitary tumor.
Yeah.
I've had that happen twice, actually.
High prolactin in and of itself is a massive, massive cardiac risk. Like it has the potential to cause myocardial infractions like that. Like it's pretty scary. People with pituitary tumors get cardiac events more rapidly because of that. It can get pretty dicey. That's why I try to stay away from anything, especially for like new guys, is anything that doesn't have a very, very easy to understand 5AR or metabolite pathway that we can follow. I'm probably not going to run it. So like I'm sticking with majority of the new guys I'm working with. It's just like Test or Anavar, things that we know like have 30 years of data behind it. So we can just like, okay, this is what's going to happen. And then as you start to progress, and it's like, all right, we're going to start playing with things a little bit more, but we have to be more cautious as well. And because a new guy comes in, he doesn't want to do blood work. He doesn't want to fucking test his blood pressure. He doesn't want to do all the other shit. And you got to get on him about it all the time. Sometimes it's just better to start with those guys as easy as possible or as manageable as possible, I guess.
I mean, I keep it super conservative. I mean, if you can't grow on test, primobolan, and some GH and a little bit of insulin, I don't know. I mean, you're not going to grow.
No, yeah, dude. People, insulin and GH in and of itself, like people underrate that, and it is so fucking powerful. I absolutely love it. It is like the test GH and insulin is like the combo that I can always rely on to work for almost anybody virtually.
I mean, the thing with test GH and insulin, they're all hormones to your body.
Right. Yeah. It's super easy to understand them too. Like, the outcomes you're going to get. So
you know what the metabolic pathways are, right?
There's no question about it. Like you're not playing like with Tren. It's like you could go be a schizophrenic. You could start adopting the appreciation for transvestites. You could, go all over the place, but testosterone sure as hell is not going to make you, testosterone is going to make you more of a man. Like it just fucking makes you great. And you don't get to deal with all this weird shit. So another problem too is that experience, like a lot of coaches will, I just was talking to another coach. He's like, I just put this new guy for his first cycle on androgen only. I'm like, why? Like that's the stupid, because like maybe this person does have the genetic proclivity to be a professional bodybuilder, but if they have like a terrible experience right off the bat with their protocols and their career, they're just going to back away from it. It's like, man, you just ruined this guy's potential because he's scared as shit now about using anything.
I mean, my thought process for a first cycle is you're going to be running testosterone as a base for everything that you do forward. I don't know why you just wouldn't use testosterone. I mean, I could be convinced with the argument of maybe just running a little bit of Anavar just to dip your toe in the pool. Like I get people that are very risk averse and they're scared of needles or whatever, and Anavar might be an option too. You're not really going to shut yourself down that hard with really at all. I think I saw a study where they said a 30 milligram dose for 8 weeks barely affected HTPA at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think I sent you a study last time we talked. It was like a 5-year study with females on Anavar, and there was no hypothalamic pituitary disruption at all. So it's pretty neutral.
It seems like doses, from what I've seen in studies, doses 30 milligrams and less really don't have much negative effect at all. The only thing that I have seen with Anavar, though, it does seem to crush HDL.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's interesting that almost it's not interesting, it's fairly understandable. I mean, it works. There's some CYP enzyme that's being utilized, and the methylation demands are being increased because of that being utilized. So maybe the liver's having to produce more, and that burden in and of itself is causing a misproduction of lipoproteins and different things like that. I know Vigorous Steve is a huge proponent. He talks about quite a few times you can run 2.5 to 5 milligrams of Anavar basically year round, especially as like a beginner, and see a lot of progress from that, just linear progress, which I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's still very effective. I just wouldn't. It's like, if you're going to go the route anyways, it's just start. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, I wouldn't waste my time. Plus Anavar is fucking expensive. Just get a viral test for like $30. You're good.
Yeah. $30. It's the base male hormone. We'll find out how you react to super physiological doses, and you may say, fuck it, I don't want to ever do this again afterwards. And you may be on for the ride.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And you put people on any like prophylactic drugs prior, like even if it's their first cycle or you have no experience with them, do you tend to put them on things like a telmisartan or ezetimibe or any?
I recommend it.
Okay.
I mean, I have a go anytime I bring on a new client. I present the options. I talk to them about what skewing that we'll see with PEDs, and it's usually lipids, and then we need to address the renin angiotensin aldosterone pathway as well to make sure that there's androgen-induced stimulation of the RAS system. We need to address that. I make that recommendation, but it's up to them you can only lead the horse to the water, but that's usually my standard recommendation. And then some other support supplements for lipids.
Yeah.
Such as bergamot, niacin, things like that.
Great. It's interesting with lipids, and this is a hard one for me to talk about because there's a lot of new stuff coming out over the past 5 years that shows like lipids are pretty much irrelevant as far as cardiac risk, and we need to look more at like lipoprotein counts, like A and B, and determine risk based off the actual quantity of lipoproteins, not the estimated amount of cholesterol within lipoproteins. So it's hard to say whether the LDL or HDL is even an effective proxy to say, okay, because you could have a great HDL and a very low LDL, but you do your blood work and you test your lipoproteins like lipoprotein B, and your B protein is through the roof. Okay, where you're still in a huge risk for atherosclerotic plaque buildup and a plethora of other cardiovascular risks. So I try to look at like that and use research that targets something like ApoB and use like an ezetimibe in that instance to pull that down. But sometimes people, like I said, like sometimes, especially with the new guys, they don't want to do the due diligence of like going to go get an ApoB and all that different thing and try to find a source to get ezetimibe from. And it's like all this shit.
It always cracks me up though. Like dudes will freak out. They'll take some bathtub trend.
Oh God,
but they don't want to. They don't want to take ezetimibe. I'm like,
right?
Are you fucking
or
kidding me,
they say my fish oil is too expensive. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like,
I'm like, you're gonna use some trend that was made in some dude's bathtub and rusty bathtub in Guadalajara, but you won't. You won't take it. You don't trust the ezetimibe,
right?
Like, give me a fucking break, man.
Oh, shit.
It's probably got fucking heavy metals in it and all sorts of other shit.
Right. It's so funny. That's a whole other thing, man. Is the whole underground scene. We didn't even talk about that. I would imagine there's a lot more bodybuilders now who have a high level of heavy metals flowing in their plasma or hanging around in adipose tissue.
Yeah, dude. I had a client that just I don't know if I talked to you about this or not, but it had mercury poisoning, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was from. Do you pin it down to like gear usage or?
Don't know. He was eating a lot of fish, so maybe it was the fish. But wow. I don't know. I'm suspicious. He just wasn't feeling well, and he went in and had a heavy metal test done, and he's doing chelation now. But yeah, man, that's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's some scary shit to me because
I mean, it may have been from he was eating a lot of tuna, so I know tuna has potentially has a lot of mercury in it.
Yeah.
So it could have been from that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I would be suspicious of the gear.
One thing you can do, I think this is a brilliant thing too. Dan Duchesne actually brought this up. Donating plasma at the end of your cycle is a great way because this is what there's been some clinical research with firefighters because they're exposed to a lot of the shit in fire and also with the agents they use to extinguish fires. They have a high concentration of like PFOAs and other heavy metals, and they'll have rotations of plasma donations and whole blood donations, and it can clear those products out of your blood by up to like 85% just by one donation. So I always have my guys like at the end of however long a course might be, that's like when we're going to donate plasma and blood and get rid of all the shit in the blood, at least attempt to.
So you go give your dirty blood to some guy dying in the hospital.
Yeah, or if they have
your dirty bathtub Tren blood to the dude that's laying in the hospital.
Hey, I bet that Tren's gonna do him good. Like, no, I mean, if the best part is if you have like a couple of my clients have like nurses for wives, and they do everything for them, which would be so obviously for whole blood. But man, that'd be so nice to have someone around the house to do that shit for you. But unless you have a doctor,
I think somebody sent me an email or something. I don't remember, but there are home phlebotomy services now.
Yeah, I've seen those popping up, and there's like home IV services where they'll come do IV drips with you at home, which is really crazy.
Yeah, I saw Steve talking about doing that in Thailand.
Yeah. Man, that's somewhere I want to live, dude. That sounds like paradise to me.
Fuck, man. If you don't have any kids or anybody, I'd be out of here, man.
Yeah.
I'd be over there in a hurry. It's cost of living's nothing.
Dude, that's the thing. I was talking to him
Beautiful
a
women.
long time ago. Yeah, you got like legal gear. You can just walk up to a pharmacy, get what you need. It's
pharmaceutical
like,
grade stuff.
yeah, man. Oh, that would be a
Great
dream.
gyms, great weather, beaches,
great food. Fuck. I was looking at flying out there, and I was like, "This is where Steve lives. Like, this is insane. Like,
yeah.
it's crazy. You live like a king out there, making $4,000 a month. It's wild."
Yeah, he and I were talking. I don't. But he was saying like you can live in a luxury apartment over there for like nothing, man. Like a fraction of what it costs here in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you live at?
Texas.
Dallas, yeah. So it's expensive there, right?
It's nuts, man. It is nuts.
Yeah, I'm in Washington D.C., man. It is freaking insanely expensive here. I bought my house, a decade and a half ago. That I don't even know if I could afford my house.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Dude, it's that bad, man. It's like, and granted, like I started buying property just when COVID hit was when I like bought my first house and then the second one. And it was like, that was like the perfect time because it was when the market kind of shit out and things were a lot cheaper. And then like right after that, prices went up. So I made a lot, but it's still like, I'm looking at shit now and I'm like, I don't know if I'm okay with like even going out on a limb to say this is worth it. Like a 2-bedroom, 1 bath is like, a 20-year-old home is like $475,000 and it's not renovated. It's like, Jesus, like who could reason that? Like, that's crazy.
Well, I mean, I worked in real estate for years, dude. One thing they say, they're not making more property.
No, that's true.
It is a precious commodity. There's more people, not more property. So you do the math, the mental math on that. But yeah, I would be really tempted if I didn't have kids. I mean, I might be over there hanging out with Tony Huge.
Yeah, honestly, man. Honestly, it looks like the life, dude. They have so much fun over there. It's like shit.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a good time. I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot to get you distracted over there. I would say you'd have to be really, really focused. Honestly, if I were a serious bodybuilder and I was, like trying to be a pro, I'd probably head to Kuwait or Dubai.
Yeah. That would be cool.
I mean, that's cool. I have some clients over in Kuwait that work out at Oxygen, man, and it seems freaking awesome there, man. Now, you're not going to party and find all the beautiful women that you do in Thailand, but if you were about business, you wanted to be the best bodybuilder you could be and live that bodybuilding lifestyle and just focus in like a laser, that'd be the place to go.
That would be nice, dude. I've heard it's not cheap like it is in Thailand over there, though. It's pretty expensive.
No. Nothing in the Middle East is cheap, man. It's in those places. No, it's probably similar to what it is here.
Yeah, but maybe better gear.
Yeah, well, I mean the guy I have that's a client over there. He was like walking down the street and showed me the pharmacy right next to the gym.
That's so fun.
They literally have a doctor right there in the gym, from what I understand.
Shut up. That's it's optimized.
Yeah, it's all optimized. Guys, don't shoot me if I'm wrong about that, but I know they take care of you over there.
It's funny because people think like, I don't know, most general population people at least believe that any professional athlete is just like naturally professional. Like they're just great as they are. I'm like, dude, every fucking athlete you see is on steroids or at least something. There's no chance they're not. And the fact of the matter is every country has a system. Like they're going to have something to elicit these compounds to people. And like Russia's a great example. Germany's a great example. Like these are the places that started the whole underground steroid scene back in the day. It's like, it's funny because it's like this stuff is everywhere. The United States is just super like taboo about it for whatever reason.
Oh, it's fucking baseball, man. It all goes back to baseball. You're too young to remember all that crap. But I remember when stuff was legal.
It was a weird documentary.
Stuff was legal up until like the early 90s.
Yeah.
And then people freaked out over baseball, man. And then it got even ratcheted down even tighter in the early 2000s after, Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and all that crap.
Yeah.
It's just so... That's when all the pro hormones, which were really steroids, Turinabol and things like that, they called pro hormones, but they were not pro hormones. You used to be able to buy that shit at GNC.
That's so wild to me. Selling fucking 18-year-olds pro hormones. Go rip.
Yeah, I think Turinabol was a pro hormone. What there was a bunch of others. I don't remember all of them. That were a lot of the weird orals and stuff that people use.
Yeah,
androstenedione and things like that.
Yeah, that's funny. It's weird how that shit comes around. It comes around, it goes around. Now they're selling like androstenedione and these different pro hormones on like Amino Asylum and different websites like that. And it's like it's just weird how shit gets recycled every now and then. You know.
Yeah, that and all the garbage SARMs and stuff.
Yeah. Have you ever used DHB before? The hydrobolide?
I have not, but I mean EQ 5-alpha reduces to DHB, right?
Right. Yep. So technically
I have used DHB.
Yeah.
I think that's why people say that high dose EQ, you have to run EQ at high doses to get the effect out of it. I don't remember what the conversion is. It 10% or 5%? I think it's 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 5%. But I mean, if you're running a gram,
yeah, you're getting something.
50 milligrams of DHB out of it.
I was watching this thing. I don't know how you feel about Broderick Chavez, but he was talking about how DHB is like the new trend. Like it's going to be it's the hardest hitting compound. It has all these positive effects. I've used it, man, and I've never seen any benefit outside of it. Just extremely, extremely being annoying to inject and extremely painful. I was curious if you'd ever tried it because
I've never used it. I had a client that was running it, and his ALT and AST were up almost to 1,000.
That's what I noticed too. Yeah, my shit went through the roof. I was like, and it literally like 4 weeks, man. Like nothing crazy long, nothing, and no like 200 milligrams a week.
Yeah, he wasn't running a lot, man. I'm like, that can't be good for you.
No, and I'm like, how does this make any sense? I've never had this happen before. It's just instantly.
Well, my thought process is if something is that toxic to your system, you can't possibly be making gains.
No. It's only going to taxate your inflammation, which is going to disenable you from activating any growth pathway within the body. I mean, like you have these cytokines and malkines that literally prevent hypertrophy from happening if you have too high of these markers. So it's like with stuff like that, and that's why I think a lot of people too, like they'll get to the end of a cycle and they notice they stop making progress. I think it's more just for the fact of they've just taxated their system so much and caused this like adverse reaction at a cellular level. It just pulls back. I don't think things like that are good.
Well, I saw it with myself, man. I when I pulled back, like I started making progress again, just running 125 milligrams a test. And it had to have been a toxic drug load, reducing that helped me get healthy and my body responded to it.
Yeah. I heard Justin making fun of you for growing at 125 milligrams on a recent podcast or something.
He tells me I take baby doses.
That's the funny shit.
He's like, I mean, I don't know. I usually don't. I think the most I've ever run in an off season is like somewhere between 1.3 and 1.5 grams.
Yeah. I
mean, I usually top out at like 750 milligrams a test, and then whatever anabolic I'm running with it, so I think 600-700 milligrams of EQ or Primobolan or something like that alongside it. On contest prep, I'll push a little higher just at the end when you toss the orals in. But I really don't take my load much higher than that. Just it's like those are baby doses.
That's hilarious.
We were talking about it before we started, but yeah, I mean, that just shows you what goes on at the pro level.
Yeah, right. You can get a good idea of like Big Paul here is getting massive. You can imagine what Big Rami's doing.
Yeah, I mean,
or at least was doing to get that big. That's the big thing. Once you hit a level, it's like you don't need that. But
yeah, you don't need a lot to hold on to. I think guys get their heads want to explode when they hear that. But really, I mean, like I did the thing on Nick Walker. I don't know if you saw that about his cycle, like where he talked about it, but he says he doesn't run a lot anymore. I'm sure what he considers not a lot is still a lot to most people. But
yeah, I
mean, it doesn't take a ton to maintain, but to get there, you got to mash the gas pedal down.
Right.
But most of the pros that I've talked to, they're somewhere in that 2 to 3 gram range.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
if I was to pose a question, so let's say you have two individuals, and they're both relatively young in their bodybuilding career. They have some experience using compounds and whatnot. One individual, you take the low and slow route. You slowly titrate doses up over their entire career. They peak out at a certain point. And the other individual, you take them and you peak their doses relatively quick to optimize as much growth as possible within a shorter time frame, maybe hopefully shortening their total exposure to androgens, or in the other case, lengthening their exposure to androgens, but at lower doses. If that makes sense, which do you think would be better?
Man, I mean, that's a chicken and egg question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always been the low and slow approach.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like, I mean, you can just look at the guys that last in bodybuilding. If you, I mean, just an anecdotal, we want to take some evidence and look at it. The guys that make it to 50 doing bodybuilding are usually the ones that have done the low and slow approach. Guys like Kamal, guys like Dexter Jackson. And supposedly Dexter was only on like half, he would come off half the year.
Yeah, I believe it.
That's what I've heard, and I've heard Kamal talk about stuff, and he doesn't run, he runs really moderate doses. The guys that blast hard usually don't last.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just think about it. The dudes that come at it hard, even if they pull back at some point, they usually don't last.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's what I've seen. I think there's times where you need to push up to, there's like these moments in time where it's like everything's working in life. You got a beautiful relationship, a beautiful home. Your occupation is paying you plenty of money to feel comfortable. Everything just seems to be clicking. It might be a good opportunity to push things a little bit harder while you have that lever available. And then maybe on other times where growth is not going to be optimal, it's maybe not worth slamming the hammer as hard per se.
Well, I was talking to Justin about it, and he works with a lot of pros. I have a few pros I work with, not that, just a small handful, but he's worked with a ton of pros. He's turned a ton of people pro. But he says that the time that when he sees people turn the gas up the highest is when they're trying to get their pro card.
Yeah,
the guys that are like knocking on the door. Yeah, the guys that are right there. They're maybe 5-10 pounds or whatever away, or 1 year away from getting their pro card. Those are the guys that push it the hardest usually.
Yeah, I believe
and then once they turn pro, then they dial it back.
I believe that. Yeah, I mean, Justin, I would argue he's probably the coach most known for turning people like normal Joes pro.
He's turned a ton of people pro. I mean, he doesn't brag about it like a lot of other guys do. But
dude, I wish he put his numbers out there, because it would be insane. I personally know well over 20 people he's turned pro. Like, I can't imagine the total number, because there's like coaches out there who say, like, they'll put in their Instagram bio like 3x IFBB pro coach. It's like shit like that, and it's like, dude, like people like Justin don't even speak about it, and then they have probably hundreds and hundreds of maybe in the hundreds of IFBB pros that they put on under their belt. It's just, you can't even fathom.
I mean, I could think of several in the last year.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I mean, he's done it. I mean, he helped me transform, man, quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I at an advanced age, I put on 50 pounds of stage weight in 1 year.
Yeah. Do you contribute that mostly to the diet intervention, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mostly a diet. Some of it's just pure luck, man. I had, I mean, literally, I've done nothing different this year.
Yeah.
And, I've just gotten sick. I've had injuries. You got to get lucky and not get sick, not have injuries. You got to be in the gym if you're doing everything correctly. But yeah, there is, people will say no, but does seem to be some magic to the carb cycling diet, to his approach to it, at least anyway. He gets really aggressive with the food. He is not shy about pushing the food.
It's so interesting. I mean, it's definitely worked. Like, I've not seen a really, I work with I'm near a couple of his clients here, and one of them is his name's Dave, and he's just like, I mean,
Dave LaMartina.
Yes. He went from, like, I can't remember what he was on his show day. It was
put
like
on 100.
Yeah,
he's put on 100 pounds in 2 years,
dude. I mean, it's so radical. The dude's like 8 feet wide now, and like, I came there and he was tiny because he was in prep. He was like this smaller bodybuilder looking guy, was strong as hell. So that guy's pretty cool. And then, like, within 6 months, just a whole different human being, like completely massive, like this. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I need to understand. And that's when I like really started to follow Justin, was like after he was telling me like what he was doing. I was like, man, that's so insane. Like, that's just radical. He's put on that much weight.
It's a lot of carbs, low fat, 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% 100% insulin.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, Justin, it's funny, like with gear with Justin, he doesn't really talk about it that much. He's just
Right.
just
Which is good.
test.
I mean, he preaches what you need to preach, like what most people don't do,
People reach out to me thinking that he has some sort of secret protocol, and he's just like, just take test and whatever anabolic you like at the highest dose you can tolerate, throw some GH and insulin in with it, and eat a bunch of carbs.
Yeah.
That's really it, man.
Yeah. He doesn't like Lantus, though, from what I've heard. I've heard him talk about it a lot, and he just does not like to.
Well, I run Lantus.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I've been trying to sway him on the Lantus. I think there's especially pounding that many carbs, you're putting a lot of stress on your beta cells.
Yeah.
Pancreatic burnout. I think a lot of older bodybuilders end up turning into type 2 diabetics because of, it's just, the vicious cycle of more carbs, more insulin production, more insulin resistance. And it's just this cycle that, just builds upon itself. At least you could take one variable out of it, and you can manage the insulin sensitivity with berberine and metformin.
Right.
So there's some things you can do to proactively mitigate some of the damage from it. But it really, when you run the high carb diet, when I see guys running 1,000 grams of carbs, you got to be taking insulin. There's just no two ways around it.
Yeah. It just wouldn't work. I think at a certain point, it just would not. It's not like it wouldn't absorb, but it just looks different on someone. When you eat 1,000 grams of carbs as a bodybuilder using insulin, it looks completely different than if some Joe Schmo who's a natural bodybuilder or just some individual not using insulin took 1,000 grams of carbs a day. It's like, or even intermittently, it's like that looks a hell of a lot different.
Well, Justin's process, with his and he can, I don't know. I think I can speak for it, but what he believes in is you have 2 to 3 high carb days a week in the off season where you keep the fats as close to zero as you possibly can, and you really push the carbs super high, 1,000 plus grams of carbs, and you mash the insulin on those days. Yeah. And then that way you're only doing it a couple days a week. And then so you're not blasting yourself with insulin all the time and maintaining some insulin sensitivity. And then you use berberine and maybe metformin if you need to kind of manage the insulin sensitivity. And then you'll have a day or two a week where you do a low carb day where you pull back down. Some people, it might be no carbs on those days just to help maintain body composition and insulin sensitivity. That's really it in a nutshell. That's it. There's no magic to it. I mean, that's just kind of his process.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it obviously works super, super well too.
So you'll have 2 to 3 days a week where you're really in a caloric surplus, and then your medium days you might be in a slight surplus, and then your low days you're probably in a deficit.
Yeah, interesting. I know that's his theory behind HIIT too. It's like the HIIT kind of maintains a certain degree of insulin sensitivity through the depletion of liver glycogen and whatnot. Yeah.
Although I never do the cardio.
Yeah. Honestly, it's something I started doing and I kind of like it. I've been fucking around with the stair climber and stuff. Like I'm getting pretty fit too, which is weird. I'm the heaviest I've really ever been. And I'm fit as hell. Like I can do 12 minutes of the stair climber at like level 20. I'm like cruising. I don't even care.
Yeah, I got to get better at doing it, man. I slack on it. Like I get to the end of my workout, I'm like, nah.
Yeah, dude. There's so many times where I'm like that, and then I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna fight. I can walk out. And I'm like, gotta fucking do it. I want to try. I want to see what happens. Because like,
it's only 12.
Typically do it. In
the off season, he only wants you doing like 12 minutes 3 to 4 times a week. I mean, it's not like it's a ton. I'm just like, nah.
Yeah,
I'm going home.
It's like fuck, dude.
I got check-ins to do.
It gets that's the fucking thing, especially when you're like people underestimate how much time bodybuilding can take sometimes. It's like you got all these different protocols for all these different things, and when you got shit going on in the background, it's like it's hard to take a step back and be like, all right, let me just do this cardio really quick, or let me just hit abs really quick, or train calves really quick. It's like fuck this, dude.
Oh man, I got 2 kids. I'm a single parent. I got business I'm running, and then when you're coaching, man, the check-ins don't stop, man.
Man, dude, it gets bad some days.
People are blasting me like at midnight. Hey, bro.
Yep.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
And they get answer if I don't answer it right away.
Yeah, exactly. And or like I personally I'm a terrible coach, but also a really good coach. I give everyone my number and I say, like, don't call me unless we absolutely plan a time to do so. And they'll, it's like fucking get a call at like 12:30 a.m. Like, this is happening. It's like it's like, do I choose spinach or kale? It's like, dude, come on. Like, this is not the fucking question to be asking.
Man,
right
I treat my I treat my my phone number like it's the secret location to El Dorado, man. Nobody gets that.
I need to start doing that. It's bad.
I learned that in business a long time ago. You never give the customer your phone number. Not if you want to have some sort of personal life. Although I have very little personal life. I try to give people as much as I could give them, but I mean, there is a line.
Yeah. It gets crossed a lot too. Coaching is a weird thing because you want to help these people out, and you sometimes it's not about the numbers. Sometimes it's truly like, hey, I don't know how you do it, but a lot of times I find myself like emotionally consulting people at points. It's
equal parts therapy as it is coaching. I literally was just talking to a guy off the ledge today. He was just like really beating himself up and just kind of downing himself. And I'm like, dude, just you look great, man. I mean, I've been there on the other end of it before. I'm like, don't be so hard on yourself, man.
Right. It's tough.
Or they're my medical, I'm their medical consultant. Hey, bro, I think I'm having a heart attack. I'm like, go to the fucking hospital.
That happens all the time. Just because I know stuff about gear and like a little bit of pharmacology.
I'm like, I'm not your goddamn doctor, man. Go to the doctor if you're having a health crisis. I don't like doctors. I'm like, well, I'm not one, man. Go to the damn doctor.
I love that show. That happens. Like, I'm pissing blood. It's like, dude, this is like, what am I gonna do right here, right now? Like, just go to the fucking doctor. It's like
911, man. That's what you do. Don't wait for me. I make that clear up front when I bring people on. I'm like, I am not your doctor. If you're having a health crisis, go to your doctor immediately. Do not wait for me.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's what happens with some of these people that get themselves in trouble on contest prep. They just like are leaning on the coach so much.
I believe it is 100%, especially like the really big gurus. I think they tend to overstep their boundaries a little bit and try to play with the biology a little bit too much. And then that kind of leads people to put too much faith in them and just be like, we won't mention names, but we talked about it, but it's just like people who claim to know everything. It's just like, the people then think like, okay, well, he must know how to, like, I got to trust him. And it's like, no, you still got to play the skeptic. You always got to,
I mean, you're always responsible for your own health. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I view coach, my relationship with Justin. Justin is my consultant, but I make the decisions. I'm driving the bus. I will consult him and I'll ask him for his advice, but it's up to me to decide what I want to do with that advice.
Yeah, that's a really healthy way to look at it, actually.
I mean, that's the way I look at it in business too. If I hire a consultant for my business, they're exactly that. They're a consultant. They aren't my boss. They aren't, my, spiritual guide or whatever. I'm getting advice from them, but and I use them for consulting.
Yeah.
To make an educated decision, but ultimately that decision is mine to make.
Right. That's a good way to look at it.
I don't know. I think that's a responsible way to look at anything. Even when you're going to your damn doctor, I've had situations where doctors have misdiagnosed me.
Yeah, all the time.
And then I'll be like, no, that doesn't seem right to me. And then I'll go to a different doctor, or I'll push back on the doctor that I'm seeing. But I mean, I think you have to take ownership of yourself in all aspects of life.
Yeah. And I'm huge on education for that fact too. Like, I want to teach people as much as I can so that they at least take that knowledge and hopefully approach something with like a more of a skeptic's mind, and they hear people talking online. I'm like, listen, man, this is like, you got to realize what works in application, what works in, because there's so many people who just tout like the animal models, and they tout like, this is going to do, like, this is how you use this for this. And it's just like some completely hypothesized mechanism that's not even in any valid human research. And like, these guys are really out there to get you, because it sounds so editorialized and like amazing for young people who want to learn. And they're like, this guy has all the secrets. It's sometimes no, like they're just making this shit up.
They're just making shit up. Yeah, literally.
Yeah, literally, like making it up and using a expansive vocabulary to express things that they don't even understand, but in a way that makes it seem so appealing and like they have the know it all kind of thing.
Well, we've talked about it before offline. You know, there's definitely some of those guys out there, but
Yeah.
anybody who claims to know it all, you should run
Right.
for the hills when you say, I don't know everything, man. I'm learning every day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, you know, I get clients send me stuff. I'm like, shit, I never knew that. Or, you know, people bring stuff. I mean, we anybody who claims to know it all is full of shit. Anybody who claims to know more than everybody else is completely full of shit. It's just, there are quite a few people out there right now that are taking that position, and it's for a consumer, be skeptical. You know, you apply some skepticism to everything and critical thought to stuff before you dive in head first, and take responsibility for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Don't place blind faith in some so-called guru online.
Right. Gets very dangerous.
No, it's very dangerous.
I know you were on a podcast with Justin and oh my gosh, what's his name? Is it
Joe?
Joe, that's right, Joe. And you guys were talking about sort of towards the end of the podcast about GLP-1 agonists. And Justin said he's like gonna start using that as like a standard of practice for preps now.
Yeah, he said he's considering it.
Have you used it at all?
No, I've never used it.
Okay.
I'll be honest. It's. I mean, I know enough about it to be dangerous, but I'm by no means an expert. I mean, I know what it does. I know how it works.
Okay.
But I've never actually used it. I know some of my clients that their doctors have prescribed it to them. In Europe, it seems to be pretty common practice now. Like a lot of my guys that are in Europe, I see their physicians prescribing them semaglutide as a protocol for weight loss.
Yeah. I mean, so the clinic we work with, my company's partnered with Rise HRT. They send free shit to me all the time to make videos about, and they sent me some, and I used it, and I was like, you know, it actually is pretty fucking effective. Like it stops hunger, but the terrible thing was when it stops, like when it stops working and the half-life wears out, it's like there's this rebound hunger that is like the most aggressive hunger I've ever experienced before, like worse than post prep, like just super fucking aggressive. And I was like, man, I don't know if anyone who isn't got their head on like really straight could get past this. It was interesting for me because I know there's a lot of people who just go through prep and then they like go off the rails. I can't imagine having that in place and the results afterwards. So you'd have to be a really strong person.
I think it was Justin that told me, maybe it was Dr. Todd, I don't remember, but somebody told me that Grayling always wins.
Yeah. It does. It's only a matter of time, you know.
Metformin's a pretty strong appetite suppressor. I mean, it works through leptin sensitivity. You know, a lot of people end up leptin resistant, and from what I understand, I can't remember the study I looked at, but it increases leptin sensitivity. It seems to work, especially in like people that are severely obese that have ruined that pathway. Yeah.
It also changes the way. It is. I can't remember exactly. It changes a different bacteria strain in your guts that adjusts how it metabolizes carbohydrates, and essentially it would release the signaling of a gut peptide that tells your brain, your hypothalamus, like, hey, we don't need to eat more, essentially. So it does that too. It's pretty powerful. I actually enjoy using it on prep more than I do even in off season, which
I use it on prep now. I had to pull it out on off season, man, because it was crushing my appetite so much I didn't want to eat. All right, dude, I got to wrap this up. It's past my bedtime.
Yes, dude. It's like I go to bed at like 8:30. Now it's like, oh shit, we're way past that. So
I'm an old man, man. I'm out by 10:30, 11 usually. It's funny. I live the boring lifestyle. Literally, man. I work all day, go to the gym, come home, work some more, go to bed. That's every day for me.
That's literally me. Like literally, you know. And that was funny because you were telling me about your young 20s, and I'm like, shit, man, like I haven't done any of that stuff, dude.
You're better off, man. You're not missing anything. I like one of the big regrets I have is like all the wasted time that I had. Like I wish I could go back and really focus on bodybuilding and business more.
Yeah.
I would have a way bigger bank account. I probably would have been a pro bodybuilder.
Seriously, man. Paul 20 years younger. I want to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I would. I remember, man. I would perma bulk all the time and never. I'd be like, I'd start contest prep and I get like halfway through and I'm like, nah,
Fuck this shit.
I'm gonna go drink and find some strippers.
Oh shit!
I should have saved my liver and kidneys for PEDs in my 20s, not for partying.
Damn it!
I used it for the wrong thing, man. God, that's a big life regret.
Yeah.
All right, dude. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Absolutely.
This was a good one. Guys, if Kolton, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Yeah, Instagram is a great method. Post a lot of educational content there, as well as updates on my business. Kolton_red, great place to find me. And then as well, YouTube, just Kolton Lucas. You will be able to find everything about me. So
yeah, and hit Kolton up for coaching now. I'm about at my limit of what I can handle. I think I might have to take the coaching promo off my ads. I'm at the tipping point, man. I don't think I can handle anybody else.
That's where you want to be. That's like right where you have the power. Now you can pick and choose.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I have a hard time saying no, though. I'll get somebody reach out to me like, hey, man, I just want to prep for the show and I really want to work with you. I'm like, fuck. All right, I'll help you out.
Yeah, those ones are tough.
So, I can't say no to people half the time. But all right, dude, I appreciate you coming on, guys. Thank you for watching. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for watching this episode. This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition. Battle tested, expert formulated. Use discount code AB10 at checkout for 10% off.